Satan and his angels are bound through a chain of circumstances on a desolate earth. And the Bible says in Jeremiah 4 verses 23 to 27, I beheld the earth, and indeed it was without form and void, and the heavens they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and indeed they trembled, and all the hills moved back and forth. I beheld, and indeed there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens had fled. My friend, some people have the strange idea that we live on the earth during the millennium. The Bible says clearly that we are caught up with Christ and we go to the heavenly temple. I beheld, and indeed the fruitful land was a wilderness, the rest of the text reads. It is obvious that the prophet is not describing creation. This is a time when the fruitful land called earth becomes a wilderness, a desolate place after Jesus comes. And the rest of that text reads, and all its cities were broken down at the presence of the Lord by his fierce anger. For thus saith the Lord, the whole land shall be desolate, yet I will not make a full end. And Jeremiah 25 verse 33 reads, and at that day the slain of the Lord shall be from one end of the earth, even to the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, nor gathered, nor buried. They shall become refuse on the ground. Love brings life. Selfishness brings death. The Bible says in Revelation 20 verse 6 that blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. What a passage. Wow. It says the righteous are priests of God and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Now what are we going to do in that 1,000 years? Revelation 20 verse 4 reads, and I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. So we should never sell our souls cheaply. There are only two ways, the way of life and the way of death. And God says at this time the books were opened, Revelation 20 verse 12, and the books were opened. My friend, you might be saying, I don't quite understand that. Why after the lost are the books opened? There's a drama between good and evil, between Christ and Satan. And during this 1,000-year period, which we call the millennium, God will answer every question that you might have. We'll have the opportunity to look over heaven's record books. We will then fully understand that God has done everything he can to save every person. Anyone who is lost only because of their own choices. And the entire universe understands once and for all that God has done everything that could be done to save the human race. Every question about his justice and love will be fully answered. And the amazing thing is this, that an all-loving, all-wise, just God allows us to participate with him in this final inspection of his judgment. And the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 6 verses 2 and 3, do you not know that the saints will judge the world? Do you not know that we shall judge angels? Now when heaven's books are opened, we'll fully understand why certain things happen to us. We'll understand the hard times and the good times. We'll see how everything fits into God's wonderful plan. Let's review what happens during this 1,000-year period known as the millennium. My friend, I hope this is becoming clearer to you now. Now, the events during the millennium. Number 1, the righteous are already in heaven. Number 2, the wicked remain dead. Number 3, Satan and the angels are bound on earth. Number 4, earth remains desolate. And then what happens after the millennium? The wicked dead are resurrected. This event is foretold in Revelation 20 verse 5. But the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. That's very clear. And the rest of the dead in this passage are the wicked dead. We have a resurrection of life for believers at the beginning of the 1,000 years, and we have a resurrection of damnation for the wicked at the end of the 1,000 years. This is now very, very clear. And John describes this group of lost human beings with this remarkable phrase found in Revelation 20 verse 8. The number is as the sand of the sea. Friend, the drama of the ages unfolds. The battle between good and evil comes to a glorious climax. Satan and the wicked of all ages form a gigantic army to attack the holy city, which descends from heaven at the end of the 1,000 years. Listen to this remarkable description of these events. Revelation 20 verses 7 and 8. Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth. And then chapter 21 verse 2, Then I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for a husband. Friend, it's the climax of the ages. The holy city descends. Satan and the resurrected wicked rush the city. They want to overthrow God and take control of the universe. And every one of us will either be inside the city with Christ or outside of the city with Satan and the evil hosts of hell. Jesus will either be Lord of all in our hearts and we will sit with him on the throne of the universe, or self will be on the throne of our hearts and we will battle against him on that final day. Revelation reveals that the headquarters of the entire universe will be shifted from heaven to this earth. It's an amazing thing that God can take this planet in rebellion and restore it to Edenic splendor once again. Listen as the Apostle John describes this marvelous scene in chapter 21 verse 3. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. The glorious holy city descends. Satan marshals the legions of the lost. They now attack the city, believing that they can take control of the universe. And Revelation 20 verse 9 reads, They went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. The Bible says fire comes down from God out of heaven and devours them. The entire universe is cleansed. Satan and his evil angels are destroyed. And out of the ashes of the old world, God makes a new one. Revelation 20 verses 11 and 12. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heavens fled away. And there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works, by the things which were written in the books.